Welcome to another enlightening episode of Mastering Counseling, the podcast that delves deep into the world of therapy, counseling, coaching, and also the business side as well. I'm your host, Becky. Today, I am really happy to introduce to you Amanda Gurgel. She is a visionary of the practice Beyond Counseling. This is a transformative, holistic group practice, which has many other therapists and counselors that she'll talk about. And it is dedicated to fostering growth and helping with healing within many different communities. Thanks for being with us today, Amanda.
Thank you, Becky. I'm so excited to be on your podcast and share wisdom, knowledge, tools, whatever is needed to support the community and therapists.
Thank you. I was looking at your website and you have so many great people on your staff. And you also, I think today will bring an element of other cultures living in other places and your travels. And I think we will gain so much from what you have to share.
Oh, thank you.
Can you share with us some of your kind of personal experiences or pivotal moments that motivated you to begin Beyond Counseling, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. Well, the pandemic itself was, I think we all went through our own personal journey of what that was going to look like. No one knew exactly what that was going to look like until we experienced it. I remember so many things had changed in terms of like our social community, our ability to go out. Like we all had to stay in our homes and started smelling like fish eventually to each other. And there were a lot of issues like parents overnight became teachers and just different things like roles that they weren't doing before on top of what they're already doing. So I think it was a huge adjustment personally and then as a community. I recognize that, once COVID was in place, I opened the group practice in June. No, it was actually December 2019. And then 2020, January, we already started hiring new therapists. And I was like, oh my goodness, the mental health industry is just growing because of COVID. No one really knew the impact it was going to have. So I think it was a tremendous growth for all of us, even though it was very scary. And I think we got through it as a community, supporting each other, learning about COVID, learning about how we can come together and just expand each other's support in these moments. At the practice, we did see a lot of high risk behaviors that we hadn't seen before in adolescents and adults. So it was a big learning curve, like professionally and personally too. So I hope I was able to answer that question.
No, thank you for giving us your perspective on that time. And wow, to have begun in December 2019 and then have no idea what's coming at you in just a couple months. It was definitely good timing, I would say, but I'm sure had
Yeah.
its challenges.
Growing pains. I think that's, when we graduate and we become licensed and we go into private, well, if we have the opportunity to go into private practice, we don't really know what that looks like until we have the experience. But to have a pandemic on top of that, I think we grew collectively with the community and together, with the vulnerabilities and the tools, and we just helped each other grow. I mean, from my own experience with COVID and how politically it became, even within my own family, like if you're vaccinated, if you're not, all the restraints and just even with our clients too. So it all tied in together. Like we were all facing very similar obstacles and getting through it together as a community. We were in it. It
Yeah,
was a crisis.
absolutely. New divisions, right, that you didn't know existed, but then working together to get through that. So yeah. In talking about Beyond Counseling under your leadership, how have you, with the increased demand, how have you guys been able to respond, especially in caring for a diverse range of clients?
Well, okay, so the response, once I realized it was beyond me, that like I could just help a few cases, I was like, I had a vision. I want to help the community at a larger, just broader spectrum. And then I started hiring one therapist at a time, and I personally handpick my therapists. We go through a very vigorous interview process with their experience, their culture, just a lot of things that I think that they would be a good fit for our values, for our culture, for my mission statement at Beyond Counseling. So then once the hiring process is completed, I have an amazing administrative team that also took time to build. Like all of this just took time. And that's one thing that I want therapists to know, like be patient with the process because we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. Like when I was in school, I didn't get this business aspect of running your own private practice. So diversity was one of our core values. I'm from Brazil. I've been here since 3. I speak Portuguese, Spanish. And I wanted to make sure that I had other therapists that could do things that I couldn't do. Like I'm personally, like my previous history was a teacher, ESE with children with autism, and then I became a school counselor, then private practice. So I wanted someone who supplemented the things I can, like I have a couples counselor, I have a child and adolescence therapist, a few of them, some of them focusing on eating disorder, high risk that was coming into the practice, just different things that I haven't been able to specialize in. So I think as the diversity of needs of mental health, I also hire as it's needed, where it's being called.
That's amazing. I love how you handpick them and what a team with so many expertise all working together. That's what a great model. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Um, how would you say when you are helping people heal, how do you integrate holistic and integrative approaches? Kind of thinking very specifically for your clients. What are some of the strategies, tools, or philosophies that you help them work through?
Well, when I think of integrative, like when a client comes into our practice, we're looking at them as a whole, spiritually, mind, body, and soul, and like what's going on in their lives. So it's a very tailored, personalized treatment plan that we come up with once the evaluation and everything is completed. And then we work as a team. Like if a therapist needs support, like, oh, I need insight on here or resources, we have the clinical supervisor, we have myself, we'll call a meeting. Not only that, we also provide trainings for the therapist if they need it. So it's like a full, comprehensive, personalized program for that individual. And then not only that, we have made so many connections in the community advocates that we communicate with. Like let's say a client needs psychiatric treatment. We have personalized relationships that we know who we're sending them to, and the success rate is excellent. Or if someone needs IOP or higher level care, like we have built-in relationships from the schools to other professionals. So it's like the holistic model is not only like our techniques, which could be like one of a holistic technique that I love is called emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. Another one is the Reiki, another one is hypnotherapy, but each therapist brings their own, specialized gifts to the practice and the holistic methods along with the evidence-based techniques and along with advocates in the community. So I think it's pulling the community together and then the wellness center together. And then on top of that, all of our team, like we have the admin team from the first phone call, the client feels heard and accepted. And we do kind of like what's called matchmaking, making sure that the client's needs, clinical needs, matches the therapist's abilities, culturally, ethically, all these other things that take place to make sure that, the turnover rate is very low. The success rate is high. And we have client surveys, customer satisfaction, all these things so that they could have a safe space and like, oh, I don't feel like this was a good match, and that's okay. So I think just openness, making sure that we're being able to provide and match the right therapist to the client, and then our advocates in the community is essential. So I'm trying to create this collaboration within the community for healing.
I love the whole community mindset that you have, and that I hear so much about networking that you're doing. And I'm sure it's so great that you even speak multiple languages, because there's not a ton of Americans who do that. And so that has to be huge for people to be able to receive therapy and coaching in their own heart language, even if they do know English. So I love that you're bringing that perspective. And making your clients happy and successful because you have such specific counterparts, whether they're in your practice or the community. So that is
Absolutely.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I have to say, like, in just starting this a few years, to see how big it's grown is really amazing. So,
Yes, I'm very excited for what the future holds. Most of the clinicians are diverse in culture too. They speak bilingual, Spanish, Turkish, English, Portuguese, Spanish. We have a diverse team because our community is diverse. We are the melting pot.
right.
But we started, so yes, I opened the group practice in January 2020. I actually opened my private practice solo in September 2020, right after COVID. And then in December, I made the decision we need to open the group practice, and I did in January. So it's been a lot, but it's been like through this whole growth experience, it's like for a therapist to think like, we have to deconstruct our belief system of like what that would look like because the experience itself teaches us something else. And it's like a mosaic. It's like all these broken pieces because you kind of like you think it's going to go this way and it actually goes this way. And I see it as a beautiful mosaic mural. And in between is all the gold. So there's going to be a lot of lessons, a lot of mistakes that will happen, but let them happen organically. And instead of staying in it, stay solution focused. Get a coach, a professional coach who has expert advice, and always take what you want, leave what you don't, because I honestly feel like each one of us has a special gift and something to offer, and we can't just follow someone else's roadmap of success. We can take it in, but some things don't resonate, and that's okay. So make it your own.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Just one thing I wanted to add in and touch on is you talked about building your administrative team, and we also like to share kind of the business end. Can you just talk for a minute about their role in your practice, even if they're not a coach, therapist, or counselor? What is their role administratively?
Wow. Well, they are the backbone, along with my beautiful clinicians, of the practice because administratively, we need seamless process to make sure that everything falls into place. For example, I have my clinical receptionist, Claudia. She's the first one that they speak to, and then she sends the intake forms. We have this technology that we use that tracks every client that comes in and where they are in the intake process, like filling out all those filling forms. I know they're not fun, but they're necessary to get therapy started. And then once all that is completed, in the consultations and things like that, we'll set up the first appointment. And then I have Chrissy Papuchas, who's also our clinical director. If Claudia has any questions regarding our pre-screening form which the client completes, she'll follow up with her and say, oh, this would be a good match, or this is what this means. So we're always in communication with each other. And then the next administrative staff is Luana Johnson. She's the executive um, just the executive on Beyond Counseling, and she makes sure that everything is running smoothly. Like she's seeing the big picture, she's handling the administration portion, but also the payroll portion, the billing, the credentialing, all these other things. So I think collectively we are a big team, but with a big mission, and we need each other for everything to be completed and helping each therapist and each client that comes into our practice.
Thank you. I always love when different like careers or majors can kind of clash together in a great way. And this would be, maybe someone who's more on the business side of things, but they really have a heart for people, and you need that warm, empathic person to take the initial information, but maybe they have a different skill set than a licensed therapist. So thank you for showing that
Absolutely.
and helping people see how intricately important the administrative side is. So thank you. Let's just talk a little bit about, we mentioned all the struggles of the pandemic, but we know that there's still many crises and things happening around the world and in our own country. What are some strategies or methodologies you would want to discuss in regard to helping people deal with the world around them?
It's a great question and a very sensitive one. I know that right now we're facing unprecedented times, things that we have never experienced, just like COVID. I mean, I'm not comparing war to COVID, but it's unexpected. I think coming together as a community, like we did during COVID, is what's essential. You know, our basic needs need to be met: food, water, and shelter, the resources. I think what differentiates right now, like what's going on in the war and in the world, is that we're here and they're there. Like when we went through the pandemic collectively, like it was all of us together going through the limitations and the obstacles and just different things. So it's hard to see what's going on over there, but we can, it's like vicarious trauma. When I listen to the news, or when I have a friend that's from Israel, or when I have a friend that's from Palestine and all these things, and they are survivors or victims of what's going on. I am currently offering my services to them, and I'll leave the link on your podcast. But I think, you know, connecting. It's like connecting with each other, being there for each other, using the resources that you have right there and then it's good to have outside resources like trained mental health professionals that can be outside of the war and help give perspective. Because I think when you're in it, you're also grieving, and it's so traumatic to see it that it can interfere with your ability to be the best, to be at your ability to conduct sessions, because it's just so painful. But we are, you know, we are a community and we are feeling this energetically as a whole. So I think being the light and being able to do what you can versus what you can't do is very essential.
Great perspective. It just makes me think a little bit when you say you're providing services, are you opening up help for people across the ocean through telehealth? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
I am
Okay.
me personally, I'm volunteering my services for individual or family or whatever is needed. And I will leave the link on your podcast after our conversation. It's like a Google form, but it's a collaboration of therapists who are willing to do this during this time. So the Google form goes to this organization, and then they will contact you and pair you up with whoever needs services at this time.
That's really amazing. I can't, I'm really kind of in awe of, I'm using the word network, but that just sounds like more sales pitch, but this is like truly coming together. And
Yes.
I love how fast, I mean, it's only been 2 weeks that you have reached out and are going to give people support in possibly some of the worst times of their lives. So your response to culture is really amazing and impressive. So thank you.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just want to say one thing, as fast as anger and all these different perspectives and opinions and belief systems that are also coming into light during this, we can spread love just as fast. You know, stay in the light and focusing on what we can do to help, besides all the other layers that come with it. You know, I think as a humanitarian, how can I help? What's something simple to something even complex, or whatever it is, anything that you can do to help. Even here, like, you know, doing a good deed gives love and sends that energy back into the world, which is really needed right now. We will be the light in this darkness through the love.
Thank you. With all the things that you have shared, um, I would just want to ask you too, because you're handling a lot of things and your response time and your business is so thriving in just a few short years. What advice would you give to the listeners in regard to caring for yourself to maintain this high level of support that you're giving to others?
Like self-care as a clinician,
Absolutely, yes.
that is a priority. Burnout is real. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, I think, you know, we just keep going, 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 but take those lessons and also take a break. You know, we can run, but we also need to rest. And when we rest, we become our best selves. And having support, like have fun. Like don't forget that you're also a human being and you have other parts of you. So I think you do go through kind of an identity crisis when you're an entrepreneur and when you're trying to open your own private practice or group practice, whatever it is, you can get lost in it, and making sure that you have the right support system. Like I can't have done this without my husband, without my family, without my team, without my administrative and clinical team and my coaches and everyone that is part of this big mission and puzzle. Each one has a piece in this picture. So, and including myself. So I make sure I work out as much as I can. I have my own therapist to help me. I have my own coach to help me. There's a lot of self-awareness that comes into becoming a leader. And I think that, it's a learning curve and a process and an experience that you go through when you're in this position. And being not only a clinician, I was also a client and still am a client. And it's okay to be the student and receive and also to grieve or whatever it is that you're going through to have that outlet. Because if not, it just stays in your body and then it becomes stress and you're not as efficient to your clients, to your clinicians, to your team, or to the community. So it has a ripple effect. So my care, my personal care comes number one.
Thank you for sharing that, because
Of
I
course.
think we always need the reminder each day. Um, you mentioned you were a school counselor before, as I am, and yeah, the weekends are important to get through the week. You have to have those fun times. And I think earlier you mentioned the word mosaic, and when you were
Yes.
talking about all the little pieces of your family and your own therapist, that's a good picture to help us all. So, let's just go back to the practice
Okay.
in your community. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would want to share in empowering individuals that you service? Anything that you feel like we haven't touched on that you would like to our listeners to hear?
In a professional point of view or like for the clients?
Um, I would say more for the client. Let's talk about that, and then we'll wrap up with just advice to people exploring this career. But anything
Okay.
else on the client end that you're seeing happen, or that type of um that type of perspective?
Okay. Right now, because of everything that's going on, there's a lot of emotion stirring up, and clients are fearful of their, religious practice and all these things. So we've been addressing that as a team. And with my own clients, depending on their background and culture, I help them process and see the resources that they have. We use the holistic approaches that I mentioned to you before. So I think it's okay to be open. I think there's a lot of fear stirring in the community right now, and we have to remember that we stand together in the light. Despite whatever is happening, we are together in this. At Beyond Counseling, you're not alone. So if you need support, if you need someone to speak to, if you're going through and you don't know what to do, we're here for you. And our team, we have our meetings, our supervision meetings, to make sure that we're communicating about what's going on in the cultures and in the community right now and how they need our support. As far as adolescents and parents and like the things before the war started, I think it's okay to not be okay. I think you don't have to be so strong and breaking down the stigma of mental health, which I think COVID really helped that a lot. The teachers, the principals, everyone's starting to see the aftermath of COVID and its impact on children, adolescents, and parents and human beings, that everyone. So we're still coping with that as well. There were a lot of things that were lost, like first time going to kindergarten, or the ones that weren't able to have a regular graduation or their 18th birthday party, whatever it was, or go to college. There was so much loss, and then being in their homes and constricted to all the limitations and seeing, their family for 8 hours a day, like we weren't trained for experience that. So I think it broke a lot of things, but we're putting it back together as a community. And at my practice, we individualize that treatment and making sure that we're addressing every issue and every concern the clients have. So we're a phone call away. If anyone needs any advice, any support for what's going on with crisis right now or in the past with COVID, we're here for you.
I liked how you explained it's like this big picture in the community and the whole business, but then it's very much individualized for the client and their specific needs of what they're going through. So
Absolutely.
that's really good to hear.
Thank you.
Uh What would you say to someone who might be exploring this field? Um, what would you say to encourage them, to warn them, or just advice if you had someone that wanted to go down this path?
That's a good question. During my own path, like I think we all develop imposter syndrome. I remember like I need to take this course and I need to take that course, but I had so much experience already from the world, from being a teacher, from just so many things. And I was like, trust yourself. Like if you really feel like this is your mission and your calling, trust yourself. Yes, continue to take courses and tools and speak to other professionals that are in the industry, seek professional help like coaching and consulting and different things like that. But like, be fearless. Don't stay in the hamster wheel and in the matrix. Like, I didn't know the opportunities and potential of and the capacity I had could have grown beyond counseling. Like I just literally started this 3, 4 years ago. Before that, I was working in agency, like 9 to 5. Everything was like a beautiful little nursery. Everything was packaged, right? For a 1K, vacation time, all these things that I thought were very important, but it kept me capped at a certain ability. And then I remember like it wasn't really what I wanted in terms like at Beyond Counseling, we have the matching program and consultations to make sure that the client is happy and the therapist. Like I remember being in an agency, I didn't have that choice. Like a client would come to me despite our differences, despite our views, I would have to treat that client. And I just felt like that was unfair. So I think there's just so much openness and so much untapped potential when you think about opening your private practice and also doing an internship, going to other group practices, being part of the community, going to networking events. Like you shouldn't have to do this alone, nor do you have to. There's so many resources. So if the seed has been planted, take the initiative and start, harvesting it for your season to come.
Thank you. That's inspiring. And I really loved your insight about the matching, in that it's not just always about the client, but what is the therapist? How comfortable are they with the client? And a client will figure out if a therapist is struggling. So I love that insight. And we haven't heard a lot about that. So that is, I would say, slightly unique to Beyond Counseling. And thanks for bringing that out. We've gotten so many insights and great perspective from you today, Amanda. She will be sharing some of her resources from Beyond Counseling. If you are looking into going into this field, you can contact them. If you are looking for some help, they have people they can match with you. And so thank you, Amanda, for giving us your time today with all the many things you have going on. I hope this is shared and it just continues to grow your practice, your business, and even with the volunteering and help that you're giving over the ocean, I hope more people will join in that as well. To our listeners, we thank you for tuning in today. Please give us feedback on Instagram and on our website. And we look forward to talking more about the world of counseling and therapy on our next episode. Saying goodbye for today. This is Becky. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you, Becky, for having me here. And I hope, my story helps other therapists that are planning on opening their own practice and also bringing the community together so we can heal through any tragedies we go together. We will get through it together. We are the light and the love.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Goodbye for now.
You're welcome. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.